When I was young, ever since I was a young boy, there was a phrase that constantly kept jumping back at me. And although it came in different sentence structures, it always found its way back. Boys don't cry. Now, it didn't matter if I'd fallen off a swing and hurt myself, if it was my first day at a new school, or if I was genuinely just desperate for attention. I was constantly reminded that if I truly was a boy, I wouldn't cry. And it came from everywhere. Parents, teachers, friends, television, even my doctor said it. I guess what I'm trying to say is that it came from society. Society claimed that if a boy or a man is to cry, there is something wrong with him. Almost as though masculinity is fragile enough to be broken by a drop of water. But growing up, I took it. I wiped my tears and put on a brave face. I tried to fit society's mold of a boy. And then I started to get bullied. A lot. And along with the generic boys don't cry came more sexist and stereotypical terms like don't act like a girl. Now, for the longest time when I cried, I tried to make sure I was alone because I didn't need another reminder on how to be a boy. What I needed was an outlet. What I needed was a way to let go of all the negative energy that was building up inside of me. And then, something remarkable happened. So let's flash back to the 8th grade. I'm in my school counselor's office, on the verge of a breakdown. And as I try to find the words to tell her what's wrong, I start to cry. And immediately, I wipe my tears and I say, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cry. And you know what she does? She pulls out a tissue, hands it over to me and says, it's okay. You're allowed to. Oh, imagine that. After years and years of being told I shouldn't, this woman in an instant tells me I can. And then I did. I cried over everything I possibly could cry about, whether it was this, or my personal favorite, this. High school. When I started high school, things were rocky, as they always are. I mean, it's high school. But I knew that no matter how intense things got, I could deal with it. Almost as though I had a switch. Whenever things got too messy or too complicated, I'd just step back, flip the switch, cry, and let all the negativity flow out. This way, there wasn't a constant buildup of negativity, and I started looking at life more positively. And then, I didn't even feel the need to cry that much anymore. Because just knowing that I had an outlet that, if I wanted to, I could, allowed me to become more emotionally in charge of myself. But what would have happened if I was never told that I'm allowed to? I realized that society, from the get-go, constantly tells boys that their softer and emotional side is less credible. Almost as though they're not allowed to talk about their feelings or vent their feelings or cry about their feelings because that's not what guys do. This leaves room for what? The harder and logical side. Now, this isn't a problem, not completely anyway. It is important for humans to be concrete and logical. However, this turns into a problem when guys begin to grow up and they're put into complicated situations and trials of life. Because they've never been told that they're allowed. They've never had a switch. And then society says to them, deal with it like a man. So now, when a problem stands before us and we're lost, we wipe our tears and we deal with it. And then another problem occurs and we deal with that too. And then another and we deal. And then another and another and another. And each time we deal with it, but what happens when we just can't deal with it anymore? Think about it. What happens to a man when he loses someone to death? Or is in a toxic relationship? When a husband is sacked out of a job or a brother is diagnosed with a terminal illness? When your best friend puts in blood, sweat, and bone, but still doesn't pass that exam? Or when a soldier is stationed far, far away from his baby girl and fears that the first time he's holding her might be the last? Put yourselves in those heavy shoes for just a second, and imagine then being told to deal with it. The constant suppression of a male's emotions, day after day, year after year, layer over layer. What happens when there's no more space left to suppress these emotions? When all that masculinity and all that macho and all that strength finally wears out. Statistics say that men are 3 times more likely to become dependent on substances such as alcohol, drugs, or cigarettes. It also says that 1 in 8 men are likely to be diagnosed with a common mental illness like anxiety or OCD. And suicide is the leading cause of death for men under 35. But wait, this can't show the whole picture. I mean, how could it? These are just percentages and recordings taken off of men who have actually spoken up. But even then, there are men in the world who, even in the roughest points in their life, feel like their emotions aren't valid to be spoken about or valid to be expressed. And then what happens? They break down. They don't have a strong connection with their emotional sides, which causes them to be paralyzed from figuring out what's causing these emotions to arise, how to deal with them, and how to put them into words. And then comes denial and comes anger. And what's the main outlet for anger? Violence. And in many ways, we know how this violence reflects at home, in social circles, in communities. We hear it on the radio, we read it in the news, we see it on social media every single day. And in a world that's already so consumed with violence, hate, and anger, why must we continuously send our boys on a path that leads to more anger, that trains them to be so rough and so tough? For many people, crying is a sign of weakness, but not for me. I see it differently. I think that crying is, in fact, the sign of a stronger human being, regardless of gender. Because this human being has a connection between this and this. So why don't we nurture more men, more boys to develop this connection? And let's start early. Let's give them the switch. Because what we need to do is transform the way society raises boys and continuously tells them that their emotions cannot be spoken about or that they can't cry about it. What this will do in the long run is that when a boy grows up and is put in a messy, messy situation, his response to that situation will be an intricate blend of soft and hard, of emotion and logic. There won't be a constant suppression over time of emotions, which could lead to a healthier lifestyle. Boys and men would understand and be more likely to understand the consequences of their words and actions on other people, and maybe, just maybe, dare I say it, we won't feel the need to be so dominating all the time. Phrases like, boys don't cry and don't act like a girl will eventually become obsolete, as they should. Because if we're constantly connotating tears and weakness with tears and crying with weakness and fragility, then why is it okay for us to let our girls cry? If we want to raise strong, independent women, then we cannot let society constantly tell them that being weak and fragile is something that just comes with their gender. No. I genuinely believe that as boys grow up, they either connect or disconnect with their emotional sides. And this connection that I developed when I was young, it's helped me grow into a more positive person. It's helped me look at life with a balance. And after years and years of being told that I shouldn't cry, I found my strength in crying. And that's why today I can stand here without fear of judgment and tell you that I do cry when needed to. I guess what society really needs to do is start with the omission of 2 letters. Thank you.